With an FHA loan, you can do 3.5% down on a fourplex, right? Like I got a guy right now in Florida. He's buying a fourplex. It's going to make him $3,500, right? And he's bringing less than 20K to the table, right? Like he's same situation, W-2. He's done it once before. Now he's got his second one. He's on his way to replacing his income.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Kingdom REI podcast. I'm your host, Ellis Hammond, and joined today, man, I just love when you connect with somebody offline and you have such a fun, good connection. I'm like, dude, I got to have you on the show. I know this is going to be a really, really fun episode for our listeners. So welcome Chris Paliska to the show, everybody. What's up, man?
I'm fired up to be here, man. Excited to get to spend an hour with you, man. That's a blessing in itself.
Dude, the first banker on the show. You know,
nice.
A lot of it, it's different to say, I'm an investor. Do you ever think, do you ever introduce yourself hey, I own a bank, or hey, do you say you're in real estate, or do you say you're in banking?
I say I'm in real estate, but that's part because I'm a real estate investor too. But it's weird. Oh, you own a bank? What? People are like, what does that mean? How does that work? Right. So.
Right. For the audience real quick, can anyone own a bank? How do you even start a bank?
Yeah, so it's a very complicated process, but a lot of compliance, a lot of approvals, a lot of background checks. If you got a speeding ticket, it's gonna throw you to the high pressure of interrogation. I got a call when we were setting up our banking lines, and they're like, "Hey, what happened in 2015?" And I'm like, "2015? Man, I don't know. I'm all nervous. What? It's you were driving down to Mammoth Lakes, California." I'm like, oh, a speeding ticket? What? So
that's insane.
It's really background check, really building up your net worth. And it's not just about how much money you have. You have to have experience too, right? So you have to get approvals based on your experience of how much mortgage banking that you've done in your career. Wow. So
I'm really excited to have you on,
especially
a service audience, because I think you have such a unique insight into the world of real estate as someone who does loans and lending for, primarily real estate investors, both primary home rental properties. So I'm really excited to get into that today. I mean, just also your story, right? I mean, you literally would say, of course, Christ is your savior, but real estate was the vehicle that really got you back on the rails of life.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so I know
the total quality life, faith, family, fitness, wellness, and business, but starts with the Lord and ends with real estate.
Come on, man. I like that. Well, hey, I want to pray for us to get us started. And I want to just jump into your story, man, because I know it's going to be really powerful for those listeners. So God, thank you for Chris. Thank you for saving him. And then giving him wisdom. You are the owner of all wisdom and power and knowledge. And so I pray that you thank you that you've given that to Chris. And I pray that, God, you would unveil, you would unlock what is secret and hidden, and make that plain to us today. And so we pray that in Jesus' name. Amen. Take me back a little bit, man, and just give some context to our listeners. I was talking offline. I saw your Instagram today. Guys, you're not following Chris on Instagram. I'll put the link down below. Go follow Chris on Instagram. He has a personal account. By the way, totalqualitylending.com. That's the name of your website as well, right? For those who are interested in.
Yep. Same on Instagram too as well.
So there was a post of you, and just to be blunt, bro, you were big.
Big boy.
Big boy is the best way I can say that. And so, we were talking about just kind of transformation of all of this. So take us back a little bit, man, your entry into this, and what do you mean that real estate literally saved your life?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a long story, but I'll keep it to the brief, short version story. But, I had graduated college, got an accounting degree, was sitting around crunching numbers. And I'm like, man, this is not me. I don't want to be sitting in a cubicle crunching numbers and not interacting with people. So that dream kind of died. I think that was more my dad's dream for a steady job, because he was an entrepreneur. So he wanted something safe and steady. So I was like, man, I want to be successful, right? I always had a good heart. I grew up Catholic, but kind of fell away from the Lord during my college 20s, early 20s years. So I'm like, I want to be really successful so I can be very generous, have this great life, the Ferrari out front, the beautiful family, the little girls, right? And just kill it, right? That's what success, the world's definition of success. And so My dad owned a valet parking company, so I was valeting cars at Mastro's Steakhouse, like the cream of the crop, driving Bugattis in Newport Coast, California. And I'm like, man, this is where the money's at. Maybe I can make some connections here and figure out what people are doing to make a lot of money. And so that's how I got into the real estate banking industry. I was parking cars and started making friends. And this guy, he came in 4 or 5 times a week. Different girls, just wearing a suit, all ready to go. I'm like, man, I'm doing the math in my head. I'm like, this guy's got to be spending like $5,000 a week here. Like, this guy's got to be doing something big time, right? And so he was a VP for a mortgage bank, one of the top 10 at the time. And he's like, man, your personality, your customer service. He's like, you can make more than doctors and lawyers. We got to get you out of this parking lot and get into the mortgage business. And that's when the journey began, and got on that path. At that big firm, and started from the bottom, $8 an hour, was valeting at night, and was just determined. I wanted to be that guy. That was my first mentor, and he taught me a lot about sales and, customer service and getting in and business development and all these things. And I went in as an athlete, but was really determined on the work part, right? Hey, if I make enough money, the family's going to fall into place. I'm going to be generous. I'm going to be a good person. My health will work out because I'm going to have a lot of money. I can just pay for to be in shape, right? Like, when you got money, everything works. And so I went down that journey, and I was determined the day I started to get into his position. And that took me on a 5.5-year journey where I eventually got there. But through that, I had lost myself. I was only focused on work. And my wife at the time wasn't focused on our relationship. I'd fallen away from God completely. Was a good person, still believed, but he wasn't, he only prayed when I was like, had a bad night drinking, right? And I'm like, oh, please, Lord, not tonight. Yeah. Don't take me, right? That was kind of the journey. And I woke up one day and I was 312 pounds, had been an athlete, worked out my whole life. There was a joke that said the bigger your belly, the bigger your pockets. I started making that joke, right? And so as I continue to progress and make more money,
is that what big people do? They make jokes about
that? Exactly. Yeah. It
is true. You do need bigger pockets the bigger you get.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was the rolling joke to get me through. And I just woke up one day and I was just very unhappy and hopeless. I got this promotion. I was the vice president of Southern California, and it lasted for like 15 seconds, right? And so I got there, was determined, driven, got where I needed to go, was making a ton of money at 25 years old, almost close to 7 figures. I just felt hopeless. Like, it lasted for 15 seconds. That promotion, the trophy, the owners put me up on the pedestal. And I'm like, man, I thought this was what success was all about. And I was broken. I was devastated and very lost, right? And I was like, who am I? What am I doing on this earth? That this is not success. What is success, right? And that's where I really went down a journey. There was a 2-week period I went through like a funk. I was in charge of 300 people. I stopped answering their calls. Oh, I'm working from home, sat on the couch, felt sorry for myself, just really went through a funk that I'd never been as a driven person. And just finally woke up, was crying, looked in the mirror, and said, it's time to man up, right? It's time, if you work out and if you're in shape, you feel better, right? Maybe you need to start there. And so I went on that fitness journey, that the picture you saw, from 312, and I lost 60 pounds in about 4.5 months. So I started feeling better. And then I really started going down a self-discovery process. Like, well, what is life all about? What is success? Like, even if I'm in shape, all this other stuff isn't helping me. And at the time, why I say real estate saved me is I was $100,000 in debt, making over $500,000 a year in my 20s with no kids.
So how do you go into that much debt when you're making that much? Like, what were you in debt on?
Irresponsible, got into some bad habits, and just partying, eating steak dinners all the time. I became the person that I saw, right? I'm spending $3,000 a week. It's like, you got to remember.
So it was like credit card debt.
Yeah, credit card debt. Yeah, got into some credit card debt. Luckily, I was smart enough at 22, while I was running rampant, that I put together one of my commission checks, 3.5% down, and bought a little condo to get started in my real estate journey. I think I was either 22, 23, couple years in the business. And that was in Southern California, and that had skyrocketed 3 years later. I'd made like 150 grand, right? And so With that, I was able to kind of start from scratch
You
and
sold that condo?
yeah, sold that condo, paid off all my debt, put a little bit of money in the bank, and started saying, you know what, I'm sick and tired. Most people go their whole life just what we call the hamster wheel when it comes to finances. And I'm like, I'm going to learn about money. I'm going to learn about investing my money. I never want to feel like this again. And really went down that journey of trying to figure out where do I put my money? How do I grow my money? Well, that was going on. I found God again. So my faith was really gave me hope. The fitness was great, like was feeling good, but I was still very hopeless in the journey, and came back to the Lord. Became a Christian at Saddleback, got baptized there by Pastor Rick Warren with my wife, who's now my wife. She was my girlfriend. She's been through the whole journey with me. We call her Saint Megan. We have 4 kids, 4 under 5. So
Jeez, wow, I didn't realize they
yeah.
were 405, man.
Yeah. So really got the faith going. And then I said, hey man, if I could work 60 hours on my business, what would I do if I spent 10 or 15 hours on my relationship with my girlfriend? Like things would be pretty good, right? And so really said, all right, man, I got to focus on this relationship and make sure that's going good. And with my family, even like my parents and stuff, I got so busy at work that I would, a client would be calling, but my mom would call me like, oh, I'll call her back, but I'm calling the client, right? Like what if I put in some work my relationships, my family? And then 2, I wanted to realize, like, why did I do what I do? How did I create these habits? Where do they come from? And I really went deep into personal development and mindset and meditation and reading books and going back to my childhood and, tying things together and saying, okay, this is, if you understand, you're aware, and really working on my mental health and wellness part of the journey. And what I realized is all these things started going together and I was feeling really great. My faith was good. My family was good. My fitness was good. I'm now like on track. I'm not a yo-yo. I dealt with that with a lot of my life. I've stayed pretty consistent. And then my mind was good. I'm meditating, I'm praying, all these different great things. And then the business, I was still in that role, in that corporate role, and just something didn't jive. It was traditional corporate culture, right?
Yeah.
Like politics, having to make decisions that I didn't want to make or didn't agree with that affected other people. And that was really irking me. So I started regressing in these in my faith and my family. And I started, drinking a little bit more and snapping on my now fiance, no longer girlfriend. We're getting serious now. We're getting married, right? And so what I correlated is all these things run together, right? You might be out of balance and your business might require more time than in some seasons of your life, but you got to be working on all of these things constantly, because when your business is down, family life's not as great because you're stressed out, right? When your wife's mad at you or your kids are mad at you or you don't feel like you're present at home, your business suffers, right? And so you got to work on all these things. So for the last straw for me was the business side. And I said, hey, I need to step into an environment and curate environment that is based on this journey of who I am and our core values of what I believe. And ultimately, that's how I started our company. I walked away from a 7-figure position there, started from scratch when my second daughter was 10 days after my second daughter was born. People thought I was crazy, but I just felt I'd found my purpose. And I had started investing in real estate at that point, saving money, started getting some more properties and started really getting that going too. So that was kind of part of the journey of how real estate saved my life, really how Jesus saved my life, but him and real estate allowed me to get a fresh start.
There's so many things in there, man, you said that I want to dive into. I'm curious though, like you went from this salary based business, this salary role where you got money coming in. How do you flip that to becoming now the business owner? Like how do you leave anything high paying professional role and say, hey, I'm gonna now go take on the risk of starting a business, especially a bank, dude?
Yeah.
Like what was that transition like, and how do you even go from letting go of someone paying you a salary to owning your own business? Why? And walk my audience through that journey, because I feel like a lot of people are it was just someone boxed me today. Hey, I'm just tired of my job. I can't leave at the moment, but I want to leave. I don't know how to leave. Like, walk me through that.
Yeah. So I think for me, there's a couple of things. I think through this journey, I had built a lot of confidence in myself, right? From going from 312 to losing 80 pounds total, like that built a lot of I can do anything I put my mind to, right? So things non-related to work built my confidence that no matter what happens to me, no matter what hole I'm in, if you go back and look at your life and what you've made it through a lot. Every person has. And that was my fuel. I'm like, I made it through this, and this. And that really helped me build my confidence. And then two, just having an intentional plan. All right, what is the plan, right? Because money does matter. You might have a family. I had my second kid on the way. So having an intentional plan of, hey, I need to have some money in the bank, right? If you're serious about getting out of that position and you want to take the risk and get on the other side, is having an intentional savings plan and other sources like real estate, right? Start investing in real estate while you're still working there, which is most people's plan, is they want to replace their income and move forward. So I think an intentional financial plan of how to get there to make sure that you feel comfortable and you got to meet your family's needs, right?
Totally.
I think those were probably the two biggest things for me. Is I just put together a plan. I said, hey, I'm going to execute on this. I'm going to start making sure I have other income coming in. I got enough in the bank to ride this thing out and give it a shot, and belief in myself, which I had built over all the adversity that I had been through. And I think most people forget what they've been through, right? And so that was a big thing for me, is like, dude, I made it through all this. Like that was way riskier than me making this move if I'm really logically calculating this, right? Which is where a lot of people get stuck. And so processing in that way really helped me make the decision. But it was still, I was scared. You know, there was a lot of sleepless nights right at the beginning. You're going to get that on the other side. But I mean, for me, I had found my purpose, and what my biggest fear was not reaching my God-given potential at that point in my life. Right. And so no amount of money was worth me not going and reaching my God-given potential. And that was really the big thing for me. I got to that point where it's like, I'll risk it all to reach my God-given potential. And I'm not going to do it in my current position. And that's what kept me up at night.
Here's a question for you, man. Cause you've had, 7-figure salary. Like most people don't get that, right? Like that's hard to create. And yet you still wanted something more. So can money buy happiness? Like, what do you think about that? I mean, yet you didn't go into pastoral ministry or missions work, like that. You went and started another business, which is a for-profit company. So what do you think?
Money can buy happiness if it's used for the right reasons, is what I believe. I think money can't buy happiness is kind of a cliche. I think if you do the right things with the money, it can buy happiness, right? It ultimately comes down to purpose. Purposeful money can buy happiness, right? And so being able to provide for your family, being able to do God's work, being able to just help less fortunate people, like that does give you, when you're feeling hopeless, being hopeful helps, right? And having some money to do that makes you happier. So that's kind of my take on money can't buy happiness. I see a lot of people say that, and I agree, because what I talked about, my definition of success and the worldly definition of success was money can buy happiness in material ways and all these other ways, and promotions and all these others. And that can't buy happiness. It has to, you have to make the money matter. And I think that's where it can buy happiness.
Yeah, that's great, man. So why did you ultimately go into the lending space? And especially, talk a little bit kind of your specialty at Total Quality Lending. And, you keep talking about your purpose. I mean, what did you find, or what was unveiled that made you say, hey, my purpose has to do with giving, FHA loans to people, or 1 to 4, loans to folks? I mean, how does that come into play? Like, why are you so excited and passionate about this type of banking and lending?
So I think there's, again, my story of, it saved me from being in debt. And unfortunately, that's 99% of people out there, is they have a lot of debt, they feel stuck, etc. And real estate, really, for the everyday American person, is one of the only ways to retire nowadays, is one of the only ways to get out of that situation. And that's where my passion came, through my personal experience of that. And then I started scaling, right? I bought multiple properties, and then I bought a rental portfolio, and then I got into multifamily, right? And I saw the income and all that stuff grow. And when my business, it saved me again. Obviously, people know where interest rates are at. They know they went from 3 to 7.6. We got it absolutely annihilated. 40% of mortgage banks went out of business in the last 18 months. And why are we still here? Because my real estate investments, I was able to keep my people because I had this other income. So now it's created an opportunity and income and equity, an opportunity for me to stay in the game and be able to survive this without folding my company, et cetera. And so that's why I'm super passionate about it. I think for an everyday person, they think it's not possible, but it just starts with one, right? And then multiple. And so that's really where my passion lies, is helping people with that.
So couple of things. I want to there's a couple of questions maybe for those who are listening who are new to real estate, but then for also the experienced entrepreneurs and kind of going and leading and building a business. There's things I want to ask you about because you've done both. So you work with a lot of folks who are new to real estate, buying their first property, maybe second property. To your point, trying to get some margin, right? So if someone's like, hey man, I'm working this job, I'm making, probably 60, 80 grand a year. That's a lot of people's scenario right now. I'm just looking to kind of get some optionality to my life. Like, I don't even want to be rich. I just don't want to be so dependent. What are some of the strategies you're seeing right now, man? Some in lending products, etc. Like, what path do you see forward for people kind of in that place?
I think that's the best time to build, right? Because you got the income on paper. So if I had one or two and was trying to scale my portfolio, I think the best thing you can do, which I wasn't able to do because I had a family young, and I just didn't know this strategy then, but was to what people call house hacking, right? Like find a duplex, a 3-unit, a 4-unit, live in one. You can repeat that year after year, get some rental income going, live in it for a year, and then move on to the next one, right? You could do that with little to no money down. Like that is, I wish I would have known that when I bought my first house. That is like the best strategy. If you're young, you can allow yourself to move. You don't have a bunch of kids, right? That
walk my audience through that you can do that with little money down. How is that possible?
With an FHA loan, you can do 3.5% down on a fourplex, right? Like I got a guy right now in Florida. He's buying a fourplex. It's going to make him $3,500, right? And he's bringing less than 20K to the table, right? Like he's same situation, W2. He's done it once before. Now he's got his second one. He's on his way to replacing his income with little to no money out of pocket.
So he's putting down 20 grand. So on a what's that 3.5%? That's 20 grand of what?
So his purchase price is right around 450.
Yeah, so 450. So he's putting down 0.035. So he's putting down, yeah, you said right around 15 grand, so he's putting maybe a little about 5% down on this asset. And you say it's cash flowing him $3,500 a month?
Yep, $3,500 a month. Yeah,
bro. So he's going to be out of his investment in 4 months. I mean, in half a year.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so you're saying, and then he's building the equity in that, and then essentially he can. So then a year later, he can take that FHA loan and go apply it to another house.
Yeah. So that's what most people don't realize. You can have multiple FHA loans. You have to have some sort of circumstance, right? So in his case, his job lets him work remote. So he moved from Connecticut to Florida, right? Okay, cool. He's got an FHA on the other one. That makes sense, right? And so you can kind of roll that. You have to occupy for 1 year and move on, but that's kind of his strategies. A single guy.
A good circumstance. You figure out like what's a circumstance you can explain to the IRS and move on.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's all about having a lender that understands these guidelines and can help you kind of get through and navigate the best way to grow your portfolio. And I think if I were in that situation, that's the best strategy. And then number two, I think would be another strategy is maybe you can't do that, right? Because I always like to give alternatives. People are like, well, I got kids. I can't live in a duplex with my kids or triplex. I think you can. It depends how bad you want it, right?
Dude, but, I'm already thinking like, man, it's funny. Like, like you do, it's so crazy, man. Like sometimes you go back to the basics, right? Like I'm hearing you talk. I'm like, why are we not still doing this? Right. Like, why are we still not doing this? Because like you get out of the grind hustle mode of like where you started as a young entrepreneur, so broke, back against the wall, and you get comfortable, and you hear these stories again. It's like, dude, I'd love to be. Why, who would say no to the extra $3,500 a month right now? Like that's crazy. So okay. Give me the alternative though.
Alternative though, is like,
I hope my audience is like, let's go. All right, I'm getting excited.
And then I think another option is you can do the same in some markets. I like Indianapolis, Columbus, There's some pockets in Tennessee. The Carolinas are great. All those are great pockets. I got a guy, he's buying a duplex for 200. He's coming up with 40 or 50. That's a little bit more money, right? But that's bringing him in $1,500 a month, right? In income, right? And so as an investment property, you got to put 20 to 25% down on that.
Yep.
But there is markets where you can get in at lower prices, or you can partner with people with money if you have the good income. There's so many ways to go about it. If not moving in is not your option.
Yep.
If you got good income on paper, that's like the golden goose, right? And so I think people get caught up on, well, I don't have enough money or this or that. And we can include the rental income as well to qualify you, or I don't qualify. Same with the FHA, right? So that 3,500, I'm using it for him to qualify too. So
what qualifies living there for a year? Is it you have to live there like more than 6 months out of that year? Like what qualifies living?
Being in the property for a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of like workarounds that could you Airbnb some of that time too?
People, yeah, people do, especially if you're kind of work remote or you're traveling, that type of stuff. So that's kind of his goal, is he'll do some Airbnb and stuff like that. But FHA can be a little strict, right? But they usually don't come knocking down the doors. But
that's what I was always wondering. We did FHA, and I lived there. I legit did. Like anybody's listening, like it's past, you can't go check now, but I definitely lived there. But no one ever came knocked on my door.
No, nobody. It's really integrity, and us as the lender, obviously, we want to make sure we stay in compliance, right? So that's the thing. We got to make sure it all makes sense. And
yeah. That makes sense. Have you ever had anyone come knock on doors?
No.
So it really is kind of high integrity with the lender.
Yeah, and it's all about underwriting. Is all about make sense.
Yeah.
What's the story, right? And that's why working with a good lender is important. Like, does this story make sense?
Yeah.
If they live in Connecticut and have to work there, and they're buying in Florida, but their employer says they got to be in the office in Connecticut, it's like, no, that's not going to make sense, right? Like, so make sense underwriting.
All right, so for real quick, just want you guys to know, Total Quality Lending. I just love this dude, man. I want to make sure people know, like,
shit, man.
And here's the thing, man. What's crazy about this is, like, we're talking about people just getting started, but bro, like, I told you this. It's the first time I've said this on the podcast show. We're leaving California, right? Like, we're packing up, we're dipping. We're not sure where we're going yet. So yes, everybody, we're leaving California. I made the first announcement here, but like, here's an opportunity for us. Like, we don't, we could go do this a couple times, right?
Yeah.
So my point is, like, this is for everybody. So what states do you lend? Do you lend most across the country?
Yeah. So we lend in 30 states, right around 30 states, which is on our website too. But any state that's really good to invest in right now, you better believe we got it, right? So,
Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, New Jersey, Connecticut, you're in all those, Minnesota, Michigan, California, Nevada.
Oregon, Washington, Idaho. So all the good ones where real estate really makes sense.
Okay. That's exciting, man. That's exciting. So those are great alternatives for folks is doing that. Your thoughts right now, man. I mean, let me ask you a couple questions about home ownership or getting into loans right now. I mean, clearly you've already said it. Elephant in the room, bro. Interest rates are high. I mean, high. And on the multifamily side, like, so high, like, it's hard to make sense, man. You're underwater in the sense that, like, your interest rate is significantly higher than you're going in cap rate. Now, I know cap rates are it's not really how we're valuing 1 to 4 units. But walk me through that, right? Like, how are you making deals work, or do you recommend folks, especially a 30-year mortgage right now at a 7%, 8% interest rate? Like, walk us. What is your thought on buying a 1 to 4 unit deal with an FHA? What kind of products are you seeing that work best for this type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the FHA is good right now. Conventional is good as well. And a little bit, we do everything. So, like, if somebody comes to us, they want to buy their first one, or they want to scale up, and even over 4 units. Hey, they want to buy a 12 unit. We do DSCR loans, which basically a lot of people don't know what that is, but it's underwritten like a commercial loan. So basically, whatever the property will rent for is what we'll lend you, right? Usually you need 20% down minimum, but it's not based on your W-2 income. You have to have the assets, et cetera. on that front. So those are good, but I think it's a great time to buy right now because everybody, you got to find the right deals, right? And if you're too busy, you should be connecting with somebody who knows what they're doing and partnering up, right? Like what you do. I'm a big proponent. When I was in the midst of my business, how I got into multifamily is somebody who had the time, did it full time. I gave them money, syndication, right? And that made sense, right? I'm a busy entrepreneur. I can't be calling tenants and doing all these other things. You got to know where you're at, right? That's where a lot of people bite themselves in the foot. They take on more than they can chew off, right, with their time. That's one thing you got to know too, is where are you at? If you have a little extra time, then maybe you could do it on your own. If not, you need to find mentors that know what they're doing, especially in this market. But I think it's a great market. I mean, we're helping a lot of
still
investors.
taking on, 30-year loans, man, at these higher interest rates. I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, at some point the rates are going to come down. If I had a crystal ball, I'd obviously be on a yacht, sipping martinis is what they would say. Probably not anymore, but the rates are going to come down at some point, right? And so there's a massive opportunity right now. The problem in the marketplace right now is the shortage of inventory, right? So home prices are still going up. Assets are still going up. Obviously, in the multifamily space, there's a lot of bridge debt and stuff. So that might be a little bit tough right now, but anything that's not on that type of financing, there's just not a lot of it out there. Yeah. And so these prices keep skyrocketing. I don't see that going anywhere because there's a shortage of housing in the United States. We've never been in that ever before. And that's what people don't realize. Yeah, rates are 7.6 or etc. If you're getting a DSCR, I'm quoting some people 8.5 right now, but the numbers are working. And if the numbers work right now on these properties, imagine when this turns, because it's going to turn at some point, because our government needs to refinance their own debt, right? So once it becomes a problem for us, then it will flow down. And so that's my take right now, is just running your numbers. And if the numbers work, I think you got to be more cautious right now and conservative when you run your numbers. But if they're working right now, you gotta be willing to take the risk, knowing that down the road you're going to be able to have a lot of upside, where a lot of people are a little scared because of what they're seeing in the media. Oh, we're coming to a recession, rates are high. What I'm seeing out there right now is not enough properties and a lot of people wanting to buy properties, and I don't see that going anywhere. So
hey, this could be total hearsay, but I heard it from a neighbor, and neighbors talk, they kind of share all kind of crazy stuff. He told me there's a new lending product out there where there's no PMI. You're putting like 3.5-5% down, but no PMI. Have you heard of this yet?
Yeah. Yep. So we do that too. We call it's no PMI. You can do 3% down on a conventional. That's owner occupied. And then you can do 5% or 3 or 5% on conventional, 3% if you're a first time home buyer. If you're a second home buyer, you can do 5% down, no PMI.
And so how does that work? I mean, is that just the government saying, hey, we want to try and get more houses sold, or what?
Yeah, basically, they have changed some of their things to try to make it more affordable with the interest rate. So they've changed their pricing adjustments, et cetera, to make it more affordable, especially for first-time home buyers. But basically, you can buy out the PMI without paying extra, which is a good option right now. Transparently, you're getting a little bit higher rate than market, but you're not paying PMI, higher tax deduction, and you're going to be able to refinance it when rate goes down. So that's kind of how it's worked on the back end, not to get
a little bit higher rate you're paying now with no PMI, and then you
but I mean the savings is substantial because PMI is high, it's not tax deductible. So it's a smart move to make right now. So that's a good product. And then a lot of these non-QM loans, like bank statement loans. So if you're self-employed, we help a lot of self-employed people, and they come to us and they struggle because obviously, write-offs, expenses, all that stuff. And so there's bank statement loans you can do with 10% down on owner occupied, where you could pay no PMI as well, which non-qualified products don't have PMI. So there's a lot of products, and that's
I'm getting excited. I'm getting excited already, man. We're gonna be doing some business, guys. Chris is my guy. Make sure you hit him up. Total Quality Lending. I'm not getting I should be getting a cut, bro, but I'm not, guys. This is just I'm a big. Chris and I are in another mastermind together. Good dude here, and really excited he's gonna help. Let me ask you let me fire a couple things at you. Do you think Grant Cardone? I know you know him. A lot of my audience know him. He's always, man, like, home ownership is trash. What do you think? Do you think he's right or wrong, man? What do you think about Grant Cardone's statement on home ownership?
I think if you look at it in a conventional way, like I've always looked at real estate as an investment, and my wife might not have liked that, right? Because we're on the move, you know what I mean? Now it's like we got kids, so I'm changing my strategy, right? But I lived in places, and then I moved on, got other ones. Like I talked about, I use that strategy, just not on 2 to 3 or 4 units, but on single families, right? And that helped me build a portfolio, right? And so I think home ownership is not trash if you use it in the right way. And at the end of the day, paying rent, you're throwing money away. So I don't agree with that statement. I mean, having something is better than nothing, but I do agree you need to go into home ownership with a strategy of helping build wealth, not just a place to live. And I think that's what people look at home ownership as, and it needs to be more than that. This is a legitimate way to build wealth for you and your family long term. And if you make the right moves, it can really make a difference for you in your life. So if you approach it with that, home ownership is not trash.
I mean, to your point, if you're house hacking a place and you got 3 units paying you rent, you're living in a place and you're making income, $3,500. That's hard, right, to argue with, right? My brother, he did buy a single family home, but he was smart because he's got an older brother that's, telling him all about these ideas. And so he bought a place where he has a separate thing where he can Airbnb. So his
Yep.
Airbnb, even though it's kind of a 1 unit place, he's still Airbnb in half his house. Dude's covering his mortgage.
Yeah, and I think it's about getting educated too, right? Because even if you go by a place where your family lives, like the appreciation is through the roof. I mean, we're projected another 8% in the next 12 months, right? Like
Yeah.
the problem with most people is they're not educated enough. And most people that are educating out there, like traditionally, like lenders and traditional real estate agents, etc., they don't show people how to use your home to build wealth. That's the key, right? I've helped so many people tap into HELOCs to get cash flow going, right? During these times, like they're sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity doing nothing with it, living paycheck to paycheck. There's no reason to be living like that when you got money sitting in your house. You just got to know how to access it and get the education from the right people to tap in too. So that's a huge thing too. That's why I think owning real estate is great no matter what, if you know how to use the tools and the pros of real estate to help you live a better life, or like what we like to say, a total quality life.
My man. I got one more question for you. I was thinking about this last night. You're a dad of 4. We both work pretty hard and we're both in pretty stressful industries, especially what real estate's been right now. And I was thinking about this. I come home and it's not been an easy season, a lot of fires everywhere. And I realized like my 2-year-old doesn't give a what about how hard my day was, bro. Like she don't give a dang. And so I just want to like get your thoughts, man, on like what's it like being a dadpreneur and how you flip that switch from, man, I just worked 8 hours, maybe longer day, whatever it is, stressful, hard day. But dude, you still got to come home and show up, man, because you got young kids who don't really care how hard your day was. They just want to hang out with dad. Like, what's that like for you, man?
It's a challenge, man. Like that's the ongoing challenge, but I think it comes down to intentionality. Like I mentioned my story, it's a little bit every day, right? My mindset is to work on all these areas because I know I'm happier, right? And start showing up with that mindset, even if I get punched in the face, which I do most days, right? In the office, something goes wrong and there's problems to solve, right? It was really doing that. So really being in the mornings like me time. I think that's critical too. I think if you don't take care of yourself, it's hard to take care of your family. And that was a big lesson for me. If I don't love myself, I can't love anybody else. Yeah. Right. And so I get that dedicated time, which gets my mind right to be able to be with my family and pour into them and love them the way they need to. But some things I do is when I come home, I try to put my phone away for a little bit to just be present, because that's usually what triggers me thinking all over the place. I try to find different times and pockets to hang out with my kids. Like I'll tell my wife to bring them into the office for a little bit and hang out and do lunch. So different creative ways and just spend intentional time. Like one thing that I do too is I don't think and this is my opinion, I don't think it's the amount of hours with your kids that you're with them. I think it's the intentional hours, right? You could be sitting with your kids for 3 hours watching Netflix on your phone, and that's not, being the best use of time, right? And so I'm really intentional with my kids. I take all my kids, other than the baby, because he's not old enough yet, but on one-on-one dates. I do that once a month. That's been a game changer, where I just connect with them. It's whatever they want to do. It's not what I want to do, right? So we get to spend a lot of time. That's been a good thing for us that I do. So just really intentional, just to walk in these areas every day, but not so, and don't beat myself up about the time, right? Different seasons call for different things, right? But it doesn't mean you can't be intentional. So those are some of the things that I do to just really connect with my kids and try to be a good dad, be a good husband, to the family.
That's strong, man. Bro, final things, man, you want to say to a group. You're standing in a room, you got 100, let's say 1,000 kingdom-minded real estate investors wanting to leverage real estate for kingdom influence. What do you say, man? What would be your advice to a room like that, and that are real estate minded, that are entrepreneurial minded, that are kingdom minded? Any departing words?
I would say, number one, it's our job to take as much money in this world for the kingdom, right? And what I talked about is making the money matter, right? Like, I take that seriously. If somebody's out getting a loan that isn't a kingdom entrepreneur, that money could be going to the wrong places, right? And that's how I think, from a warrior mindset. And when you do that, like, that's, you can tell I'm getting fired up. Like, with that mindset, that gets you ready for the day. And I think if you step into that, like, you deserve that money, right? Like, if you know in your heart, it's between you and God, not what other people think of your intentions and where your heart's at. And if you got the right heart and the right intentions, you deserve to win, right? You deserve to have that money, and you need to walk in that. I think that was a struggle for me for years. Like, oh, I don't deserve all this and that. And when that changed, you just strap up and you go, and we got to take it back for the kingdom. I think that's the biggest thing, is walk into your day with that mindset, is I got to win this, or the devil or somebody, the enemy, is going to get this, right? If I don't get this, and you don't know who's on the other side. And I think that's the biggest thing that I would say, is just show up, step into faith, and come in with that mindset on a daily basis, and let's go take it back for the kingdom.
That's good, bro. That's good. Guys, go check out my man Chris on Instagram at totalqualitylending.com, especially if you're in need of some financing on your home loan, a rental property, whatever it is. Chris's team will help you out. They're lending in a bunch of different states. Chris, man, pumped to know you. Looking forward to doing some more business together, bro. So thanks for coming on today.
Yep, appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, bro. Hey, guys, I don't ask you for nothing on this show except to leave me a 5-star review and share this. I mean, think about it. You just don't know how this episode can change someone's life. So all we ask, take a screenshot, share this on social media, and go and leave a 5-star written review on iTunes. It goes a long way. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Cheers.